But you just helped land a Boeing 737. Yes, Olivia replied simply. I did. Before Alvarez could press further, emergency medical personnel entered the cockpit. Captain Reynolds was quickly assessed, stabilized, and transferred to a waiting ambulance. The controlled chaos of an emergency response enveloped the medical teams, airport officials, company representatives, all converging on the aircraft. Passengers deplaned with remarkable calm, many stopping to thank the crew as they exited. They knew only that a medical emergency had necessitated an unscheduled landing, not how close they had come to a potentially catastrophic situation. The last passenger left the aircraft. Olivia stood quietly in the forward galley, her professional demeanor firmly back in place. But something had changed. The carefully constructed walls of her flight attendant persona had cracked, revealing glimpses of someone else, someone with skills and knowledge far beyond serving drinks and demonstrating safety equipment. A company representative approached her, tablet in hand. Ms. Bennett, I need to debrief you about today's incident. First Officer Alvarez mentioned that you provided unusual assistance during the emergency. Olivia nodded slightly. I assisted as required by the situation. Yes, well, the representative looked uncomfortable. She says you helped land the aircraft, that you demonstrated advanced flight deck knowledge and operational skills. Is that accurate? I did what was necessary to ensure passenger safety, Olivia replied evenly. Isn't that what we're all trained to do? Not at that level, Miss Bennett. Not with that level of technical expertise. The representative studied her with newfound interest. Your personnel file doesn't mention any pilot training or flight operations background. Care to explain? Olivia met his gaze steadily. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. Hours later, seated in a sterile conference room at Sioux Falls Regional Airport, Olivia found herself facing a panel of airline officials, FAA representatives, and safety investigators. The initial relief of a successful emergency landing had given way to intense scrutiny. Let's be clear, Ms. Bennett, said the senior FAA investigator, a stern woman with decades of aviation experience evident in her weathered face. No one is questioning that your actions today were instrumental in preventing what could have been a tragic situation. What we're trying to understand is how a flight attendant with no documented flight training was able to assist in landing a commercial aircraft. Olivia sat perfectly straight, hands folded on the table before her. Her uniform remained immaculate despite the day's events, her composure unshakable even under intense questioning. I believe that's a conversation best had with certain people who aren't in this room, she replied calmly. The airline's chief pilot leaned forward. Ms. Bennett, we've contacted every flight school in the country. We've checked with the FAA, the military, foreign aviation authorities. There is no record of anyone named Olivia Bennett ever holding a pilot's license or completing flight training of any kind. And yet, added another investigator, the cockpit voice recorder clearly shows you using proper aviation terminology, managing complex flight systems, and assisting with landing procedures at a professional level. Olivia remained silent, her expression revealing nothing. The tension in the room grew palpable until the door opened unexpectedly. A man in a crisp dark suit entered without introduction, carrying a slim folder and an air of absolute authority. This interview is concluded, he announced without preamble. Ms. Bennett will be coming with me. The FAA investigator bristled. Excuse me, but this is an official safety investigation. You can't just, actually, I can. The man placed a federal identification card on the table. The investigators examined it, their expressions changing from indignation to surprise. Miss Bennett's background and qualifications are classified, the man continued. Her actions today were appropriate and necessary. That's all you need to know. The airline officials exchanged confused glances, The chief pilot spoke up. "We have a right to know who's operating our aircraft." "And you do," the man replied smoothly. "Captain Reynolds and First Officer Alvarez are fully qualified and authorized. Ms. Bennett merely provided assistance during an emergency situation, as any crew member might. The fact that her assistance was unusually effective should be cause for gratitude, not interrogation." He turned to Olivia. "We're done here." Olivia stood without comment, gathering her small travel bag. She followed the mysterious official from the room, leaving behind a group of confused and frustrated investigators. In the corridor outside, she finally spoke. "That was unnecessary. I could have handled it." "Perhaps," the man replied, walking briskly toward a side exit. "But some things are better left unexplained, especially given your particular history." They emerged into the fading afternoon light, where a nondescript black SUV waited. As they approached the vehicle, Olivia finally allowed herself a moment of genuine emotion. "Is Captain Reynolds going to be all right? Triple bypass surgery scheduled for tomorrow morning. Prognosis good. He was lucky you were aboard." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Olivia murmured. The man opened the SUV door. "No, it didn't. Which is precisely why we need to talk about your cover being potentially compromised." Olivia paused before entering the vehicle. "I wasn't about to let that aircraft crash when I could prevent it." "No one's suggesting you should have," he assured her. "But your particular skills weren't supposed to be demonstrated quite so publicly." As they drove away from the airport, Olivia gazed out the window at the darkening sky. For 11 years, she had successfully maintained her cover as nothing more than a dedicated flight attendant. 11 years of hiding her past, her training, her true capabilities. One emergency had changed everything. She had saved 174 lives today, but at what cost to the careful anonymity she had constructed? "They'll want me to go back into the program now, won't they?" she asked quietly. The man didn't immediately respond, his silence an answer in itself. Olivia Bennett had been just a flight attendant that morning. By evening, she had become something else entirely, or rather, had revealed what she had been all along. The carefully constructed ordinary life she had built was now as fragile as clouds dispersing in high winds. What would come next remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: there would be no returning to the simple anonymity of her former existence. The black SUV wound through the streets of Sioux Falls, its tinted windows sealing Olivia and the mysterious government agent from public view. Streetlights flickered on as dusk settled over the city, casting intermittent shadows across her face. She remained silent, her mind calculating possibilities, contingencies, exits, habits she thought she had left behind years ago. "You should know they're already calling you the hero flight attendant on social media," the man said, breaking the silence. Passengers were filming through the windows during the emergency vehicle's approach. "Your name hasn't leaked yet, but it's only a matter of time." Olivia's expression remained neutral, but internally she processed this unwelcome information. Visibility was the enemy of her carefully constructed life. "Where are we going, Director Harlow?" The man raised an eyebrow, perhaps surprised she remembered his name after all this time. "Somewhere we can talk privately. The program has questions." "The program was supposedly decommissioned 9 years ago," she replied evenly. "Officially, yes." His tone revealed nothing. The SUV turned into the parking garage of an unremarkable hotel on the outskirts of town. Not a luxury establishment, but not budget either, the kind of place that catered to business travelers who valued anonymity and efficiency. Perfect for clandestine meetings. Director Harlow led her through a service entrance, bypassing the main lobby. They took the stairs rather than the elevator, climbing to the 4th floor in silence. He unlocked a room at the end of the hallway, gesturing for her to enter first. The suite was simple but spacious, a small sitting area with a couch and 2 armchairs, a desk with a secured laptop already open, and floor-to-ceiling windows with the blinds drawn. On the coffee table sat a file folder with no markings. "I assume that contains my original file," Olivia said, nodding toward the folder. "Among other things." Harlow removed his suit jacket, draped it meticulously over a chair, and loosened his tie slightly, the only concession to the long day. "Please sit." Olivia chose the armchair furthest from the door, a position that allowed her to observe both Harlow and any potential entry points. Some habits never died. 11 years, Harlow began, opening the folder. 11 years of perfect. Cover maintenance. Multiple airlines, 15 different route assignments, over 9,000 flight hours as cabin crew. Not one incident, not one slip, not one moment where Olivia Bennett became anyone else. "Until today, I made a judgment call," she replied. The aircraft was in danger. First Officer Alvarez was overwhelmed. Captain Reynolds was incapacitated. The lives of everyone on board were at risk. "I'm not questioning your decision," Harlow clarified, his tone softening slightly. "I'm acknowledging how remarkable it is that you maintained your cover for so long, given your actual capabilities." He removed the photograph from the folder and placed it on the table between them. The image showed a younger Olivia, hair shorter, expression harder, standing beside an F-16 fighter jet. She wore a flight suit with patches that had been deliberately blurred in the photograph. "Major Olivia Reeves," Harlow said quietly. "United States Air Force, top of her class at the academy. Selected for specialized training with the 77th Tactical Squadron. Test pilot for the Peregrine program." He paused, studying her reaction. "Before you disappeared into civilian life and became Olivia Bennett, senior flight attendant with absolutely no documented flight experience." Olivia's eyes remained fixed on the photograph, memories flooding back despite her best efforts to contain them. The weight of the flight controls in her hands, the G-forces pressing against her body during high-speed maneuvers, the rush of adrenaline as she pushed experimental aircraft to their limits. "The Peregrine program was disbanded," she said finally. "After Riyadh," Harlow nodded grimly. "Officially, yes. The public records show a training accident that claimed the lives of 3 pilots. What they don't show is that the program evolved rather than ended. It just went deeper underground. I got out, legally, honorably discharged." Her voice carried a subtle edge. "Yes, you did," Harlow acknowledged, "with the express understanding that your training, your skills, and your entire military career would remain classified. You chose a new identity, a new life. We respected that choice. Until now," Olivia observed. "Until circumstances forced our hand." Harlow closed the folder. "The question is, what happens next?" Outside the hotel window, the lights of Sioux Falls twinkled in the growing darkness. Somewhere in the city, Captain Reynolds lay in a hospital bed, his life saved by emergency surgery. First Officer Alvarez was likely still being debriefed, trying to explain how a flight attendant had helped her land a commercial aircraft. Passengers from Flight 3721 were calling loved ones, sharing stories of their diverted flight, perhaps mentioning the unusually composed senior flight attendant who had remained calm throughout the emergency. Olivia's carefully constructed anonymity was unraveling thread by thread. "What are my options?" she asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Harlow leaned forward, his expression serious but not unkind. "Option 1, we contain this. Create a plausible explanation for your aviation knowledge, perhaps a private pilot's license you pursued as a hobby. Enough to help in an emergency, but not enough to raise serious questions. You transfer to a different airline, perhaps a different route. Life continues as before." "But," Olivia prompted, knowing there was more, "but your cover is compromised." "Not completely, not irreparably, but enough to create vulnerability. Some passengers recorded video. The cockpit voice recorder captured your expertise. First Officer Alvarez witnessed your skills firsthand. The story will spread. Questions will be asked. And option 2? Harlow's expression shifted subtly. You come back in. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Coming back in meant returning to a world Olivia had deliberately left behind, a world of classified missions, specialized training, and purposes that existed in the shadows of national security. The Peregrine program needs you, Harlow continued. Not as a test pilot this time, but as an instructor. Your unique combination of military flight experience and 11 years of commercial aviation gives you a perspective no one else has. Olivia stood abruptly, moving to the window. She parted the blinds slightly, looking out at the city below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, blissfully unaware of the programs and protocols that operated in the periphery of their existence. I left for a reason, Director, she said quietly. After Riyadh, after what happened to Thomas and Elena. I know, Harlow acknowledged. The program made mistakes, serious ones, but it's evolved since then. The focus now is on emergency response, pilot recovery protocols, ensuring that commercial flights have fail-safes beyond the technology. Human fail-safes. Olivia turned back to face him. You're embedding trained military pilots as flight attendants? On commercial airlines? On select routes? High-risk corridors? Flights carrying sensitive personnel? Harlow stood as well, his posture reflecting years of military discipline. What happened today on Flight 3721 was precisely the scenario the program was designed to address. A pilot incapacitated. Systems compromised. A need for immediate intervention by someone with advanced flight skills. You make it sound like. I was placed on that flight deliberately, Olivia observed, her eyes narrowing slightly. You weren't, Harlow assured her. Your presence was coincidental. But it proves the concept works. When properly trained personnel are in position, lives are saved. Olivia walked back to the armchair, but remained standing. How many others are there? How many former pilots living as flight attendants? Currently active? 17 across. 4 major airlines. All volunteers, all fully aware of their dual role. And you want me to train them, Olivia stated flatly. Who better? Harlow countered. You've lived both worlds more successfully than anyone. You maintained your cover perfectly while simultaneously preserving the skills needed in a crisis. Today proved that. Olivia felt a complex mixture of emotions rising within her, pride in her actions that day, concern about her compromised identity, and a surprising flicker of something she had thought long extinguished, purpose. What about my life now? She asked. The one I've built for 11 years? It doesn't have to end, Harlow replied. You'd maintain your position as a flight attendant, but with a modified schedule allowing for training rotations. Your cover would be adjusted to withstand greater scrutiny. We'd create a backstory of limited flight training that explains your skills without revealing the full truth. He paused, then added, and you'd be formally recognized within the program. Not publicly, of course, but you'd no longer be operating alone, isolated from support. The offer hung between them, tempting in ways Olivia hadn't anticipated. For 11 years, she had lived a half-life present but distant, engaged but reserved, performing a role that utilized only a fraction of her capabilities. The emptiness had become so familiar she hardly noticed it anymore. Until today, when muscle, memory, and training had surged back, reminding her of who she truly was. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. Harlow nodded, checking his watch. Unfortunately, time is the one luxury in short supply. The media's already circling this story. By morning, they'll be looking for the flight attendant who helped land the plane. As if on cue, Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She withdrew it, glancing at the screen. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages. Most from colleagues, some from numbers she didn't recognize. News traveled fast in aviation circles. 48 hours, Harlow offered. That's the most I can give you before we need to implement either containment protocols or reintegration procedures. Olivia nodded once decisively. I'll have an answer by then. There's a secure vehicle waiting to take you wherever you need to go, Harlow said, reaching for his jacket. And Olivia, for what it's worth, what you did today. It was extraordinary. 174 people are alive because of your actions. For the first time since the emergency, Olivia allowed herself a small, genuine smile. 173, she corrected. I was always going to survive. I had control of the aircraft. The hotel room door closed behind her with a soft click. In the hallway, Olivia stood motionless for a moment, centering herself. 11 years of careful anonymity had been shattered. In a single afternoon. Now she faced a choice that would define the next chapter of her life. The secure vehicle Harlow mentioned waited in the hotel's rear parking area, another nondescript SUV with tinted windows. The driver, a young woman with the unmistakable posture of military training, nodded respectfully as Olivia approached. Where to, ma'am? Olivia considered the question. Her temporary crew accommodations in Sioux Falls would be swarming with colleagues and possibly media by now. Returning to Minneapolis, her home base, would only accelerate the inevitable questions. Is there somewhere quiet? She asked. Somewhere I can think without interruption? The driver nodded. Director Harlow anticipated that request. There's a property about 30 minutes outside the city. Private, secure, fully stocked. Perfect. As they drove through the darkening countryside, Olivia stared out the window, her mind replaying the events of the day. The moment she had entered the cockpit and seen Captain Reynolds slumped in his seat. The look of barely controlled panic in First Officer Alvarez's eyes. The feel of the aircraft controls beneath her hands after so many years. It had all come back so naturally, as if the intervening decade had never happened. The technical knowledge, the muscle memory, the calm focus under pressure, none of it had faded. She had slipped back into the skin of Major Olivia Reeves with frightening ease. The SUV turned onto a gravel road, headlights illuminating dense woods on either side. Eventually, they reached a small clearing where a modest cabin stood, warm. Light glowing from its windows. We'll be stationed at the perimeter, the driver informed her. Complete privacy, but full security coverage. There's a secure phone inside if you need to reach Director Harlow. Olivia thanked her and approached the cabin alone. Inside, she found a simple but comfortable space living area with a stone fireplace. Small kitchen stocked with essentials, bedroom with fresh linens. On the dining table sat a sealed envelope, with her name, her real name, handwritten on the front. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a single photograph that made her breath catch. The image showed 5 pilots standing beside an experimental aircraft, their faces young and confident, their futures seemingly boundless. Olivia stood in the center, flanked by her closest friends from the program, Thomas Chen, Elena Rodriguez, Marcus Whitman, and James Foster. The Peregrine 5, they had called themselves. The elite within the elite, selected for the most classified and advanced flight testing program in existence. Before Riyadh. Before the accident that claimed Thomas. And Elena. Before everything changed. Olivia sank into a chair, the photograph trembling slightly in her hands. She hadn't seen these faces in 11 years, had deliberately locked away the memories of their time together. The camaraderie, the shared risk, the absolute trust that developed when you put your life in each other's hands daily. There was no note accompanying the photograph, but the message was clear enough. Remember who you were. Remember who you still are. She placed the photograph on the table and moved to the fireplace, striking a match to kindle the prepared logs. As flames began to dance, she found herself recalling the last conversation she'd had with Thomas before the Riyadh operation. "We're making a difference, Liv," he had said, his eyes bright with conviction. "What we're doing here, it's going to save lives someday." Thomas had believed in the program absolutely. He saw beyond the classified missions and experimental technology to the potential applications that could benefit civilian aviation. He had died believing in that purpose. Olivia watched the fire grow stronger, its warmth gradually filling the small cabin. For 11 years, she had existed rather than lived, going through the motions of a life that utilized only a fraction of her capabilities. She had been competent, professional, reliable, all the things a senior flight attendant should be, but never fully engaged, never fully present. Today, for the first time in over a decade, she had felt completely alive. Completely herself. Her phone buzzed again. Another text message, this one from Marcus, another flight attendant who had worked with her frequently over the years. News saying flight attendant helped land plane in emergency. Was that you? Media everywhere looking for details. Call me. Olivia set the phone aside without responding. The story was spreading faster than even Harlow had anticipated. By morning, her name would likely be public. Her carefully constructed anonymity was evaporating by the hour. She paced the small cabin, weighing her options. She could walk away, completely disappear into a new identity, start over somewhere else. The skills that had allowed her to become Olivia Bennett could certainly help her become someone else. Or she could accept Harlow's offer, return to the program, train others like herself, continue her cover as a flight attendant, but with the added purpose of her true capabilities. The secure phone on the side table suddenly rang, startling her from her thoughts. She answered cautiously. "Miss Bennett? This is Sioux Falls Memorial Hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact for David Reynolds." Olivia straightened. Surprised, Captain Reynolds listed me as his emergency contact. "Yes, ma'am. He's out of surgery now and asking to speak with you. He's quite insistent." This was unexpected. Her relationship with Captain Reynolds had always been strictly professional, courteous, but distant, as was typical between flight deck and cabin crew. Why would he list her as his emergency contact? "I'll be there as soon as possible," she replied, mind already calculating. The hospital would be public, potentially exposing her to media attention. But Reynolds might have answers she needed. 30 minutes later, Olivia entered Sioux Falls Memorial through a service entrance, guided by hospital security who had been briefed to expect her. She wore civilian clothes provided at the cabin, jeans, a simple sweater, and a baseball cap, pulled low over her eyes. Not a perfect disguise, but enough to avoid immediate recognition. Captain Reynolds lay in the ICU recovery room, connected to various monitoring devices. Despite the surgical ordeal, he appeared remarkably alert, his eyes focusing immediately. As she entered, "Bennett," he acknowledged, his voice raspy but clear. "Or should I say Major Reeves?" Olivia froze, her suspicions instantly confirmed. "You know, not until recently," Reynolds admitted, adjusting his position slightly with a wince of pain. 3 months ago, I received a classified briefing. Selected captains being informed about the Peregrine personnel potentially serving on their flights. Need to know basis only." "Why wasn't I informed?" Olivia asked, moving closer to his bedside. "Protocol. The embedded officers aren't supposed to know which captains have been briefed." He studied her face. "I never connected you to the program until today. When I felt the heart attack coming on, when I realized I was losing consciousness, I remembered your file. Former Air Force, extensive flight experience. I made sure Alvarez would open the cockpit for you." Olivia processed this information, pieces falling into place. The program never ended. It just evolved. "Apparently so," Reynolds agreed. Though I only know what I was told, that certain flight attendants had specialized training to assist in extreme emergencies. I had no idea the extent of your capabilities until Alvarez told me what happened. How much does she know? Only what she saw, that you handled cockpit systems with expertise no flight attendant should possess. She's smart, Bennett. She's asking questions. Olivia nodded, understanding the implications. First Officer Alvarez represented yet another crack in her carefully maintained cover. The doctor says you're going to recover fully, she said, changing the subject. Triple bypass, but all indications positive. Thanks to you, Reynolds acknowledged. If you hadn't been aboard, if you hadn't taken control when you did. He left the sentence unfinished, the alternative too grim to verbalize. I did what I was trained to do, Olivia replied simply. And now? What happens to Flight Attendant Bennett? Reynolds asked, his experienced eyes reading the conflict in her expression. Olivia looked out the hospital room window at the city lights. I don't know yet. There are complications. Because your cover is compromised, Reynolds surmised. The media is already circling the story. Hero flight attendant helps land plane is trending online. Yes. Reynolds was silent for a moment, then spoke with the directness of a man who had faced his mortality and emerged with clarity. For what it's worth, I've had hundreds of flight attendants on my crews over the years. Most are competent, some exceptional, but none like you. There was always something different, a level of awareness, a precision that went beyond standard training. He paused, gathering strength. Whatever you decide, know that what you did today mattered. Not just to the passengers and crew, but to aviation safety more broadly. If there are others like you out there, others with your capabilities serving as an invisible safety net, that changes everything. Olivia felt the weight of his words, the implicit endorsement of the program she had left behind. Before she could respond, a nurse entered, checking Reynolds' monitors with practiced efficiency. I'm afraid you'll need to wrap up soon, she advised Olivia. The patient needs rest. Olivia nodded, turning back to Reynolds. I should go. Bennett, he called as she reached the door. Reeves. Whoever you are, thank you for saving my aircraft. She allowed herself a small smile. That's what co-pilots do, Captain. Outside the hospital, the night had deepened. Olivia pulled the baseball cap lower as she slipped back into the waiting SUV. Her mind felt clearer now, the conversation with Reynolds having crystallized something important. Back to the cabin? The driver asked. No, Olivia decided. Take me to Director Harlow. The drive back to the hotel passed in contemplative silence. Olivia had spent 11 years running from her past, from the person she had been trained to be. Today had shown her that person still existed, still functioned with precision and purpose when called upon. Perhaps it was time to stop running. Director Harlow was still awake when she knocked on his hotel room door, looking as if he had expected her return. He gestured her inside without comment. I have conditions, Olivia stated without preamble. Harlow's expression remained neutral, but a flicker of something, perhaps satisfaction, passed behind his eyes. I'm listening. I'll rejoin the program as an instructor, but I maintain my cover as a flight attendant. Choose my routes, my schedules, my assignments. And I want full disclosure about the current program, all aspects, all personnel, all protocols. That's classified at levels even I don't have full access to, Harlow pointed out. Then get me someone who does, Olivia countered. I'm not walking back in blind. Harlow considered her demands, then nodded slowly. I believe that can be arranged. Anything else? Olivia hesitated, then voiced the question that had been lurking at the edges of her consciousness since the emergency landing. Marcus Whitman and James Foster, the others from my original team, are they still active? Yes, Harlow confirmed. Both reintegrated into the program after Riyadh, though in different capacities than before. A wave of emotion washed over Olivia: relief, anticipation, a complex mixture of feelings at the prospect of reuniting with the surviving members of her former team. "I want to see them," she said. "Before I make anything official." Harlow nodded again. "That can be arranged as well." He extended his hand. "So we have an agreement?" Olivia looked at his outstretched hand, weighing the final step back into a world she had deliberately left behind. But it wasn't really a return, she realized. It was an evolution, bringing her hard-won commercial aviation experience into the program, potentially reshaping it from within. She clasped his hand firmly. "We have an agreement." The weight that had rested on her shoulders since the emergency landing seemed to lift slightly. Not because the path ahead was clear or easy, but because for the first time in 11 years, she was moving forward as her complete self, not just the carefully constructed facade of Flight Attendant Bennett, but the full spectrum of her capabilities and experiences. Tomorrow would bring challenges, media attention, debriefings, the beginning of her reintegration into the program. But tonight, as she gazed out at the quiet streets of Sioux Falls, Olivia felt something she had almost forgotten: the quiet satisfaction of accepting her true purpose. She had been just a flight attendant that morning. By evening, she had reclaimed the entirety of who she was. Dawn broke over the airfield with golden light streaming across the tarmac. Olivia stood motionless at the edge of the runway, watching a small executive jet make its final approach. The aircraft touched down with precision, its wheels sending small puffs of smoke as they met concrete. Even from this distance, she recognized the distinctive landing style, slightly nose-high. Perfect speed management, the kind of touchdown that passengers barely felt. 3 days had passed since Flight 3721. 3 days of carefully managed media statements, classified debriefings, and preparations for her reintegration into the Peregrine program. Now as the jet taxied toward her, Olivia felt an unexpected flutter of nervousness. The aircraft came to a stop 30 yards away. Its door opened, stairs extending smoothly to the ground. A moment later, a tall man in civilian clothes emerged, pausing at the top of the stairs to survey the airfield. Even after 12 years, Olivia recognized him instantly: Marcus Whitman. Once her closest friend in the program, her wingman during countless training missions, the person who had saved her life during the Riyadh operation. He descended the stairs with the fluid grace of someone entirely comfortable in his body, his movements economical and precise. Behind him came a second figure, shorter, broader, with the powerful build of someone who spent significant time in physical training. James Foster, the tactical specialist of their original team, the man who could fly anything with wings and some things without them. Olivia remained where she was, allowing them to approach her. Their expressions shifted from professional neutrality to disbelief to something more complex as recognition dawned. "Liv?" Marcus spoke first, his voice carrying across the remaining distance between them. "Is it really you?" The formality of the planned reunion dissolved in an instant. Olivia moved forward, and suddenly they were embracing 12 years of absence collapsing into nothing. For a moment, they were the Peregrine 5 again, though only 3 remained. "We thought you were gone for good," James said as they finally separated, his eyes scanning her face as if memorizing it anew. Off the grid, new identity, new life. "That was the plan," Olivia acknowledged, studying her former teammates. Marcus looked older, of course, fine lines around his eyes, silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. But his gaze remained sharp, observant, missing nothing. James had changed more dramatically. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, and his formerly carefree demeanor had been replaced by something more measured, more contained. "Until you landed a Boeing 737 as a flight attendant and blew your cover spectacularly," Marcus added with a hint of the old humor. "Always had to show off, didn't you, Reeves?" Olivia felt a smile tugging at her lips despite the gravity of the circumstances. Some habits die hard. Let's talk somewhere more private, James suggested, gesturing toward a hangar at the edge of the airfield. There's a lot to discuss. The hangar looked ordinary from the outside, weathered metal. Siding, standard aviation markings, nothing to suggest it was anything other than a maintenance facility. Inside was a different story. Beyond the initial area housing the small corporate aircraft, a secure door led to a state-of-the-art briefing facility, multiple screens displaying real-time flight data, secure communications equipment, and a conference table with embedded technical interfaces. "Welcome to Peregrine Nest 4, James said as the door sealed behind them. One of 12 such facilities across the country. Olivia took in the space with a professional eye. Impressive upgrade from the bunkers we used to operate out of. The program has evolved, Marcus explained, activating the room's systems with a security code. After Riyadh, after what happened to Thomas and Alina, everything changed. The focus shifted from experimental aircraft testing to something more practical. The main screen illuminated, displaying a world map with glowing points indicating what Olivia assumed were other Peregrine facilities. Commercial aviation integration, James continued. Putting people with our training in positions throughout civilian airlines, not just as flight attendants, but as ground crew, maintenance, technicians, air traffic controllers. Creating an invisible safety net, Olivia murmured, remembering Captain Reynolds' words. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. After 9/11s, after other incidents where aircraft were compromised, the powers that be realized the vulnerability of commercial aviation wasn't just about security protocols, it was about response capabilities if things went wrong. He touched the screen, bringing up statistical data. In the past 7 years, Peregrine personnel have intervened in 27 critical incidents across commercial aviation, most so subtly that no one ever knew they were there. Until you. There was no accusation in his tone, just statement of fact. Olivia didn't flinch from it. I made a judgment call. The aircraft would have been lost otherwise. No one's questioning your decision, James assured her, echoing Director Harlow's earlier words. Hell, I would have done the same thing, but it does create complications. Hence why you're here, Olivia surmised. To evaluate whether I can be reintegrated after such a public exposure. Marcus and James exchanged glances. Not exactly, Marcus replied. We're here because we requested to be. When your name suddenly appeared on active Peregrine protocols after 12 years of silence, we had to see for ourselves. Harlow told us you're considering rejoining as an instructor, James added. He asked for our assessment, given our history together. Olivia moved to the window overlooking the airfield, considering her next words carefully. Before I make any final decisions, I need to know what really happened in Riyadh. The full story, not the redacted version I was given before I left. The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly. Marcus's expression tightened, and James unconsciously touched the scar on his face. You deserve that, Marcus acknowledged. After a long pause, especially if you're coming back in. He activated a secure protocol on the briefing room system. The screens darkened momentarily, then displayed classified file headers that Olivia hadn't seen in years. Operation Sandstorm. Marcus began. The official record states it was a training accident during a sandstorm in Saudi Arabia. 2 aircraft lost, 2 pilots killed. Thomas and Elena, Olivia said softly. Yes, but that's not what actually happened. Marcus looked at her directly. The mission wasn't a training exercise. It was a covert interdiction of an unauthorized weapons transfer using experimental aircraft with stealth capabilities beyond anything publicly acknowledged. Images appeared on the screen: satellite photos, intelligence reports, fragments of communication transcripts. We were sent in because conventional forces couldn't be used without creating an international incident. 5 pilots, 5 advanced aircraft, perfect for a deniable operation. But something went wrong, Olivia prompted. Though she knew parts of this story already, James took over the narrative. Intelligence failure. The target was far more heavily defended than we were told. Surface-to-air missile systems that shouldn't have been there. When we were engaged, communications were jammed. That's when the real mission parameters were revealed. What do you mean? Olivia asked, a cold feeling spreading through her chest. We were never meant to all return, Marcus said quietly. The aircraft we were flying were prototypes valuable, but ultimately expendable, as were some of the pilots. The primary objective was to gather data on how the aircraft performed under actual combat conditions, with the interdiction as a secondary goal. Olivia felt her breath catch. We were test subjects. Some of us more than others, James confirmed. Grimly. The planes assigned to Thomas and Elena had subtle but critical differences in their defensive systems, deliberate vulnerabilities built in to test specific response scenarios. They never had a chance, Marcus added, his voice tight with controlled anger. When the missiles locked on, their countermeasures failed exactly as they were designed to. Olivia turned away, struggling to process this revelation. She had suspected something like this for years, had felt the wrongness of the official explanation, but hearing it confirmed reopened wounds she thought had long since healed. That's why I got out, she said finally. I knew something wasn't right, that we weren't told the whole truth. We almost followed you, James admitted. After Riyadh, after what they did to Thomas and Elena, both of us considered walking away. What changed your mind? Olivia asked. Marcus and James exchanged another glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. We decided to stay and fix it from the inside, Marcus explained. The program was too important to abandon, but too dangerous to leave in the hands of people who saw pilots as expendable assets. So we made our own conditions, James continued. Either the program changed fundamentally, or we would go public with everything we knew. It was a dangerous gamble, but we had leverage as the surviving pilots from Riyadh. Our testimony would have been devastating. And they agreed? Olivia asked skeptically. Not immediately, Marcus admitted. There were threats, attempts at intimidation. But eventually, certain people in positions of genuine authority recognized the value of what we were proposing, a program focused on saving lives rather than calculating acceptable losses. He gestured to the facility around them. This is the result. Peregrine reimagined as a safety system embedded within civilian aviation. No more experimental weapons testing, no more deniable operations. Just highly trained personnel positioned to intervene when conventional safeguards fail. Olivia absorbed this information, her mind working through the implications. And you trust that this reformed program won't revert to its original priorities? That they won't sacrifice personnel when convenient? Trust but verify, James replied. With a grim smile. We built in safeguards. Every Peregrine operative has a direct, secure communication channel to either Marcus or me. Complete operational transparency. And a dead man switch if anything happens to us, certain information becomes public automatically. We've created something that matters, Liv, Marcus said earnestly. Something that would have made Thomas and Elena proud. What you did on Flight 3721 saving those passengers when systems failed and the pilot was incapacitated, that's exactly what this program is now designed to do. Olivia moved back to the briefing table, examining the data displayed there more carefully. Incident reports, training protocols, safety statistics, all pointing to a program genuinely focused on protecting civilian aviation rather than advancing military objectives. Why me? She asked finally. Why reach out now, after all this time? There must be other qualified instructors. Because you've done what none of the rest of us have managed, James explained. You've actually lived both worlds simultaneously maintained your cover identity perfectly while preserving the skills needed in a crisis. Most of our current operatives struggle with that balance. And because you're the best pilot I've ever flown with, Marcus added quietly. Better than me, better than James, better even than Thomas. You have an intuitive understanding of aircraft that can't be taught, only nurtured. Olivia felt the weight of their expectations, their hope. I've been out for 12 years. My technical knowledge is outdated. Not as outdated as you might think, James countered. Your landing of Flight 3721 proved that. The fundamentals don't change: physics, aerodynamics, the basic principles of flight. The technology evolves, but the core skills remain. He touched a control, bringing up footage from what Olivia recognized as the cockpit camera of Flight 3721. The image showed her in the co-pilot's seat, hands moving with confident precision over the controls, expression focused and determined as she guided the troubled aircraft toward safety. This is who you are, Liv, Marcus said softly. Not just the flight attendant you've been playing at. Being for 12 years, this. Olivia watched herself on the screen, recognizing the truth in his words. In that moment of crisis, she had become fully herself again, integrated, complete, utilizing all her capabilities rather than just the carefully curated subset that fit her cover identity. If I say yes, she began cautiously, I need guarantees. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Complete transparency about every aspect of the program. You'll have it, Marcus promised immediately. Full access, all clearance levels. And I choose my assignments, Olivia continued. No more taking orders from people who see us as assets rather than individuals. Already built into the current structure, James assured her. Operatives have veto power over any assignment they deem compromised or unnecessarily risky. Olivia took a deep breath, making her final decision. Then yes, I'm in. The relief on her former teammates' faces was palpable. Marcus reached out, clasping her hand firmly. Welcome back, Major Reeves. Not Major anymore, Olivia corrected him. Just Olivia. Well, just Olivia, James said with a hint of his old humor. You've got some catching up to do. Training begins tomorrow. The next morning found Olivia in a different facility altogether. A sophisticated flight simulator housed within an unmarked building near Denver International Airport. The technology had evolved significantly since her active duty days, with visual systems so realistic they were nearly indistinguishable from actual flight conditions. Marcus stood beside her as technicians made final adjustments to the simulator. We'll start with a baseline assessment, he explained. See where your skills are after 12 years away from active flying. You mean besides landing a 737 with compromised systems and an incapacitated captain? Olivia asked with a raised eyebrow. Besides that, Marcus acknowledged with a smile. We need to establish protocols for your training program. You can't teach what you haven't mastered yourself. The simulator technician signaled that the system was ready. Olivia settled into the pilot's seat, adjusting it to her preferences. The controls felt both familiar and strange, similar enough to trigger muscle memory, different enough to require conscious adaptation. Scenario parameters loaded, the technician announced. Commercial aircraft, Boeing 777, transatlantic flight. Multiple system failures initiated at random intervals. Weather conditions variable. Good luck, Ms. Reeves. The simulation began with startling realism. Outside the virtual cockpit windows, clouds streamed past as the aircraft cruised at 38,000 feet over the Atlantic. All systems initially showed normal operation. Olivia familiarized herself with the control layout, running through basic procedures to reacquaint herself with the aircraft type. Then, without warning, multiple alarms sounded. The primary flight display flickered and went dark. Hydraulic pressure dropped on the port side. An engine fire warning illuminated. Olivia's hands moved instinctively, addressing the cascading failures with methodical precision. Backup systems engaged, alternative procedures implemented. Each challenge met with calm, focused response. Marcus watched from behind, saying nothing, allowing her to demonstrate her capabilities without interference. After 30 intense minutes, the simulation ended with a successful emergency landing at a simulated Shannon Airport in Ireland. "Impressive," he commented as the screens reset to neutral. "Your technical skills are still sharp." "It comes back quickly," Olivia replied, wiping a thin sheen of perspiration from her forehead. "Though I'm rusty on some of the newer systems." "That's what the next phase of training is for," Marcus explained. "Bringing you up to speed on current aviation technology, emergency protocols, and paragraph-specific procedures." They exited the simulator room to find Director Harlow waiting in the adjacent briefing area. "How did she do?" he asked Marcus. "Directly, better than expected. Core skills intact, minimal degradation despite the time away from active flying. With targeted retraining, she'd be ready for instructor qualification within weeks rather than months." Harlow nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good, because we have a situation developing that may require your expertise sooner than anticipated." He activated the briefing room display, showing flight paths across North America. "We're tracking a pattern of subtle navigation system anomalies across multiple airlines. Nothing catastrophic yet, but concerning enough that we've elevated the alert status for all Peregrine personnel." "Cyber attack?" Olivia asked, studying the data with professional interest. "Possibly, or equipment failure, or even deliberate. Sabotage, that's what we need to determine." Harlow turned to face her directly. "Your experience as both a test pilot and a working flight attendant gives you a unique perspective that could be valuable in this investigation," Olivia felt. A familiar surge of adrenaline, the response to a meaningful challenge, a real mission with lives potentially at stake. "What do you need me to do?" "For now, continue your reintegration training. But be prepared for possible field deployment if the situation escalates." Harlow's expression remained professional, but there was a hint of something like satisfaction in his eyes. "I told you the program needed you, Major Reeves. This is why." As he departed, Olivia turned to Marcus. "He planned this, didn't he?" "Using a real situation to accelerate my re-engagement." Marcus shrugged slightly. "Harlow's always working multiple angles. But the threat is genuine, and your skills are genuinely needed. That's what matters." Olivia nodded, accepting this reality. The world of intelligence and covert operations had always operated in shades of gray rather than black and white. What mattered were the outcomes: lives protected, disasters averted. "Then let's get back to work," she said decisively. "I've got a lot of catching up to do." The following days fell into an intense rhythm of training, briefings, and reintegration into the Peregrine program's protocols. Olivia absorbed updated technical information with remarkable speed, her mind quickly bridging the 12-year gap in her active aviation knowledge. Simulator sessions became increasingly complex: multiple aircraft types, diverse emergency scenarios, challenging weather conditions. Each test pushed her capabilities further, reawakening skills that had lain dormant during her years as a flight attendant. Between training modules, she reconnected with Marcus and James, rebuilding the trust and camaraderie that had once defined their team. They shared stories of the years between James's work developing new training protocols, Marcus's role in restructuring the program after Riyadh, both of their efforts to honor Thomas and Elena's memory by creating something meaningful from the tragedy of their deaths. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner at a secure facility outside Denver, James raised his glass in a toast. "To Thomas and Elena," he said solemnly. "They'd be proud to see what we've built." "And to see you back where you belong, Liv," Marcus added. The team was never the same without you. Olivia raised her glass, emotion tightening her throat. To all of us past, present, and future. To making their sacrifice count for something. They drank in silence, each lost in their own memories of friends long gone but never forgotten. After a moment, Marcus spoke again, his tone lighter. So how does it feel, being back in the cockpit after all this time? Olivia considered the question carefully. Like coming home, she admitted. As if a part of me that was dormant has reawakened. I didn't realize how much I'd missed it until I had control of that 737. Yet you were an exceptional flight attendant, James observed. By all accounts, no one ever suspected your background. Because I committed to the role. Completely, Olivia explained. I became Olivia Bennett, senior flight attendant. I took pride in that work, found value in it. But it was always a partial expression of who I am, what I can do. And now? Marcus prompted. Now I have the chance to be whole again, she replied thoughtfully. To integrate all aspects of my training, my experience, my capabilities. Not just as a pilot or just as a flight attendant, but as both simultaneously. That's what makes the peregrine concept so powerful, the dual perspective, the ability to move between worlds. Her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Director. Harlow's name appeared on the screen with a simple text, briefing room, now. The three exchanged glances, immediately shifting from relaxed camaraderie to professional focus. Something had changed in the situation they'd been monitoring. In the briefing room, Harlow was already waiting, along with a technical specialist Olivia hadn't met before. The main display showed flight tracking data with several aircraft highlighted in warning colors. The navigation anomalies have escalated, Harlow announced without preamble. 3 commercial flights reported significant deviations from programmed flight paths in the last 2 hours. All temporarily lost primary GPS functionality before backup systems engaged. Pattern? Marcus asked, immediately focused on the tactical implications. All westbound transatlantic flights approaching the eastern seaboard, the technical specialist explained. All different airlines, different aircraft types, but utilizing similar navigation system architectures. Targeted attack, James concluded. Not random failures, Harlow nodded grimly. That's our assessment as well. Which means we need to deploy peregrine personnel on high-risk routes immediately. Protective coverage while we identify the source of the interference. He turned to Olivia. I know you're still in retraining, but your experience is needed. We're short on available personnel with your specific combination of skills. You want me back in the air, Olivia stated, understanding immediately. As a flight attendant with peregrine authorization. Yes, Atlanta to London, departing tomorrow morning. One of the identified high-risk routes based on the pattern we're seeing. Olivia exchanged glances with Marcus and James, seeing their support in their expressions. This was happening faster than any of them had anticipated, but the situation demanded immediate response. I'll do it, she said decisively. But I want full technical briefing on the exact nature of these navigation anomalies, and direct communication links to Peregrine Command throughout the flight. Already arranged. Harlow confirmed, sliding a briefing packet across the table. Your official flight attendant schedule has been modified. As far as the airline is concerned, you're simply returning to duty after a brief personal leave following the incident on Flight 3721. As the others discussed technical details, Olivia opened the packet, reviewing the mission parameters. It felt surreal yet oddly right to be back in operational planning mode after so many years away. The familiar terminology, the precise protocols, the clear chain of command, all elements of a world she had once left behind now welcomed her back. Tomorrow she would board another aircraft, don another flight attendant uniform, perform another safety demonstration. But this time, she would do so with full awareness of her dual role, her complete capabilities, her true purpose. Olivia Bennett, senior flight attendant, was now fully integrated with Major Olivia Reeves, peregrine operative. No longer compartmentalized, no longer divided, but whole. Olivia stood in the crew briefing room of Atlanta International Airport, her flight attendant uniform crisp and perfect once again. Around her, other crew members chatted casually about weather conditions, passenger loads, and personal plans for their London layover. To them, this was just another transatlantic rotation. To Olivia, it was her first official mission as a reactivated peregrine operative. "Nice to have you back, Bennett," said Carolyn, another senior flight attendant who had worked with Olivia frequently over the years. "Heard you had quite the adventure on that Minneapolis flight." Olivia smiled with practiced modesty. "Just doing my job." "Just doing your job?" Carolyn raised an eyebrow. "The news said you helped land the plane when the captain had a heart attack." "That's hardly in the flight attendant manual." "Media exaggeration," Olivia deflected smoothly. "First Officer Alvarez did the actual flying. I just assisted with some basic procedures." Before Carolyn could press further, the captain entered the briefing room, ending casual conversation. Captain Michael Donovan, 52, 24 years with the airline. According to the peregrine briefing materials, he was not among the pilots cleared for knowledge of the program. "Good morning, team," Donovan began, his voice carrying natural authority. "Flight 847 to London Heathrow, Boeing 77-100R, full passenger load of 368 plus crew. Weather en route looks generally favorable with some expected turbulence approaching the British Isles. Standard Atlantic crossing. Estimated flight time 7 hours 50 minutes. As he continued with technical details, Olivia studied him with professional assessment. Steady, experienced, confident without arrogance. Exactly the type of captain you wanted in command of a long-haul flight. Under normal circumstances, she would be nothing more than another crew member under his authority. But these weren't normal circumstances. Hidden beneath her standard issue watch was a sophisticated communication device linked directly to Peregrine Command. In her crew luggage, disguised as ordinary items, were specialized tools that could interface with aircraft systems if necessary. And in her mind was a detailed briefing on the navigation anomalies that had prompted her rapid deployment. "One final note," Captain Donovan concluded. "Some carriers have reported minor GPS irregularities on North Atlantic routes. Nothing serious, but as a precaution, we'll be running enhanced position verification protocols throughout the flight. First Officer Mercer and I will handle that on the flight deck. For the cabin crew, it's business as usual." The briefing concluded with standard procedural reviews. As the team dispersed to prepare for boarding, Olivia felt a momentary sense of déjà vu. Just days ago, she had been preparing for another routine flight that had turned into anything but. Today, she was deliberately walking into potential danger, eyes wide open. Pre-boarding procedures passed in a familiar rhythm. Olivia checked emergency equipment with genuine thoroughness, not just the cursory verification that some crew members performed. She memorized the passenger manifest, noting medical professionals on board who could assist in an emergency, as well as any passengers who might require special attention. As passengers began boarding, Olivia took her position at the forward entry door, greeting each person with professional warmth. "Welcome aboard Flight 847, she said repeatedly, studying faces, assessing potential problems or resources. The training she had received both as a flight attendant and as a peregrine operative merged seamlessly in these moments, two skill sets serving a unified purpose. "Ms. Bennett?" A male voice caught her attention differently than the others. She turned to find an airline executive she didn't recognize standing before her. "A word, please." He led her slightly aside as another flight attendant temporarily took over greeting duties. "I'm Robert Keene, Director of Special Operations," he said quietly. I've been briefed on your unique status. Olivia maintained her professional expression, revealing nothing. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Keene gave her a knowing look. Peregrine Protocol 7129, he murmured. You're not the only one with clearance on this aircraft. The code was a legitimate part of the authentication sequence Olivia had memorized during her reintegration briefing. Understood, she replied softly. Operational parameters? Observe only, unless circumstances dictate otherwise. Captain. Donovan is unaware, but First Officer Mercer has been briefed. She'll be your primary contact on the flight deck if needed. This was new information. The briefing hadn't mentioned that First Officer Mercer was cleared for Peregrine knowledge. It changed the operational dynamics significantly, giving Olivia a potential ally in the cockpit. Thank you for the update, she said. Any other modifications to mission parameters? None at present. But be aware that this flight has been specifically flagged in the pattern analysis. If something's going to happen, intelligence suggests it's most likely to occur on this route, this rotation. With a slight nod of acknowledgement, Keene moved away, becoming just another airline executive seeing off an international flight. Olivia returned to her duties, her situational awareness heightened even further. Boarding completed without incident. The massive Boeing 777 pushed back from the gate precisely on schedule, joining the queue of aircraft waiting for takeoff clearance. Olivia performed the safety demonstration with professional precision, her movements fluid and practiced while her mind remained focused on potential threats. Takeoff was smooth, the powerful engines propelling the fully loaded aircraft into clear morning skies above Atlanta. As they climbed through 10,000 feet, Olivia began the initial beverage service, moving efficiently through first class while maintaining subtle surveillance of both passengers and aircraft systems. 2 hours into the flight, cruising steadily. At 38,000 feet over the Atlantic, Olivia's specialized watch vibrated discreetly against her wrist. A text message appeared on its face, visible only from her viewing angle. Anomaly detected on sister flight. Remain at heightened alert. She acknowledged the message with a subtle tap and continued her cabin duties without any outward indication of concern. The sister flight referenced would be another transatlantic crossing, likely on a parallel route to their own. The fact that an anomaly had been detected confirmed that the pattern was continuing. In the galley, preparing for the main meal service, Olivia found a moment of privacy to check additional details on her secure device. The anomaly reported was consistent with previous incidents, temporary GPS deviation followed by automatic switching to backup navigation systems. No immediate danger to the aircraft, but concerning as part of the broader pattern. First Officer Emma Mercer appeared in the galley, ostensibly checking meal options, but clearly there for another purpose. Everything all right back here? She asked casually. All normal, Olivia replied, the double meaning clear between them. Just preparing for meal service. Mercer nodded slightly. Captain's running additional position verifications every 20 minutes. So far, all systems nominal. Good to hear, Olivia said. Let me know if you need anything. The subtext was clear. The situation remained under observation, but had not escalated. Mercer returned to the cockpit while Olivia continued coordinating meal service with the other flight attendants. The next 3 hours passed without incident. The navigation systems functioned normally, passengers remained calm and comfortable, and the flight progressed as scheduled across the vast Atlantic. Olivia maintained her dual role, seamlessly attending to passenger needs with genuine care while continuously monitoring for any signs of the anomalies that had triggered her deployment. It was during the quiet period after meal service, as many passengers dozed or watched movies, that Olivia's watch vibrated again. This time, the message was more urgent. Multiple anomalies detected. Your aircraft entering affected airspace zone. Prepare for possible system irregularities. Almost immediately, the aircraft interphone chimed. "Senior crew to the flight deck, please," came Captain Donovan's voice, professional but with an undertone of tension that Olivia immediately recognized. She made her way forward quickly, passing through the darkened cabin where most passengers remained blissfully unaware of any potential issue. At the cockpit door, she followed security protocol, identifying herself before being admitted. Inside, the atmosphere was focused but not panicked. Captain Donovan and First Officer Mercer were both engaged with their instruments, performing what appeared to be diagnostic procedures. "Bennett," Donovan acknowledged her presence without looking up. "We're experiencing some navigation inconsistencies. Nothing critical yet, but I wanted to give this senior crew a heads up." Olivia moved closer, scanning the flight displays with practiced ease. The primary GPS was showing position data that conflicted with the inertial navigation system by approximately 7 miles, a significant discrepancy at cruising altitude. "What do you need from the cabin crew, Captain?" she asked, maintaining her flight attendant role while her mind processed the technical situation. "Just awareness for now," he replied. "We've switched to backup navigation systems and notified ATC of the discrepancy. Several other aircraft in this sector are reporting similar issues." First Officer Mercer gave Olivia a significant look. "The pattern matches those anomalies we were briefed about during pre-flight." Donovan seemed too focused on the situation to notice the subtle communication between his first officer and senior flight attendant. "We're well within safety parameters," he assured Olivia. "But I want the cabin crew prepared in case we need to implement any special procedures." "Understood, Captain," Olivia replied. "The cabin is secure, and all crew are positioned according to standard protocol. We're ready to support whatever actions you deem necessary." As she spoke, her eyes continued to assess the instrument readings. The discrepancy wasn't resolving. In fact, it appeared to be increasing incrementally. 7 miles had become 8 in just the brief time she'd been on the flight deck. "Captain," First Officer Mercer said suddenly, "primary communications just dropped to intermittent. Backup radio systems are operational, but signal strength is degrading." Donovan frowned, toggling several switches on the communications panel. "ATC, this is Transatlantic 847 radio check." Static crackled through the speakers, broken by fragments of a response. "Trans 847. Reading you. Patchy. Maintain." "Navigation and communications affected simultaneously," Mercer noted, exchanging another meaningful glance with Olivia. "Consistent with a coordinated electronic interference pattern." "Or a major system failure," Donovan countered, still unaware of the larger context. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Bennett, return to the cabin and ensure everything remains normal for the passengers. No need to alarm anyone while we sort this out." "Yes, Captain," Olivia replied, though she was reluctant to leave the flight deck when a critical situation was developing. As she turned to go, First Officer Mercer spoke up. "Sir, given the circumstances, it might be beneficial to have Bennett remain on the flight deck temporarily. Her assistance during the incident on Flight 3721 demonstrated exceptional resource management skills." Donovan paused, considering this suggestion. "You're referring to the Minneapolis emergency landing? I heard about that." He gave Olivia an appraising look. "They said you helped with some systems management." "I provided basic assistance too." The first officer, "Yes," Olivia confirmed modestly. Before Donovan could respond, multiple warning indicators illuminated simultaneously. The primary flight display flickered, altitude data jumped erratically, and the heading indicator began to drift. "What the hell?" Donovan muttered, his hands moving quickly over the controls. "We've got cascading system failures. Autopilot disengaging." The aircraft shuddered slightly as Donovan took manual control. "Mercer, run the electrical system diagnostic. Bennett, return to your station and prepare the cabin for possible turbulence." Olivia hesitated, her peregrine training urging her to remain where she could directly assist with the developing crisis. But protocol dictated that she maintain her cover until circumstances absolutely required otherwise. "Yes, Captain," she acknowledged, moving toward the door. As she reached it, her secure watch vibrated again. The message this time was unambiguous. "Multiple aircraft affected. Pattern confirmed as deliberate electronic attack. Activate contingency protocol Delta." Protocol Delta authorized peregrine personnel to reveal specialized capabilities if necessary to ensure flight safety. It was the authorization Olivia had been waiting for. She turned back. "Captain Donovan, with respect, I believe I can assist with the current situation." Today, she had been both Flight Attendant Bennett and Operative Reeves, simultaneously, not compartmentalized, not divided but whole. Her dual training had proven its value in ways even the Peregrine program's architects might not have fully anticipated. The massive Boeing touched down smoothly on Heathrow's runway, another safe landing in a day that could have ended very differently. As they taxied toward the terminal, Olivia's secure device vibrated one final time with a message from Peregrine Command. "Well done, Reeves. Full debriefing at secure location. Director Harlow sends personal commendation." She acknowledged the message and continued her duties, helping passengers retrieve luggage, ensuring safe deplaning, maintaining her flight attendant role until the very last moment. But something had fundamentally changed, not just in how she viewed herself, but in the very nature of her service. For 11 years, Olivia Bennett had been a flight attendant who happened to have a hidden past as a pilot. Now she was truly both, simultaneously, her capabilities integrated rather than separated. The wall between her identities had dissolved, replaced by a seamless whole greater than the sum of its parts. As the last passenger left the aircraft, Captain Donovan approached her in the forward galley. "I've been thinking about what happened today," he said quietly, "about what might have occurred if you hadn't been aboard." "There are others like me," Olivia assured him. "On other flights, other routes. The system is designed with redundancy." "Maybe so," he acknowledged. "But today, it was you who made the difference." He extended his hand. "Thank you, Olivia. For what it's worth, I'd be honored to have you on my crew anytime, whatever your actual title might be." She shook his hand firmly, a genuine smile breaking through her professional demeanor. "The honor was mine, Captain." As she left the aircraft, moving through Heathrow's bustling terminals toward the secure location for her debriefing, Olivia reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. From Air Force pilot to flight attendant to peregrine operative, each role a part of her, each experience building toward something greater. She had come full circle, returning to the world of classified operations and specialized skills, carrying with her the humanity, the perspective, and the genuine care for others that her years as a flight attendant had cultivated. The result was neither Major Reeves nor Flight Attendant Bennett, but someone knew someone stronger, more complete, more capable of making a difference when it truly mattered. The story that had begun with, she was just a flight attendant, until she had to land the Boeing 737, had evolved into something far more significant. She wasn't just a flight attendant with hidden pilot skills. She was a guardian at 35,000 feet, part of an invisible shield protecting the skies, using every aspect of her training and experience to ensure that passengers reached their destination safely, regardless of what challenges arose. And in that integrated purpose, Olivia had finally found her true calling, not in hiding who she was, but in embracing the full spectrum of her capabilities in service to others. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.